Hello, everyone. This is Tasuki of Flames coming at you today. I was wanting to talk a bit about all the, issues people have been having with the Dragon Ball Super animation stuff, which I think is completely fine. Episode 5 had really horrible quality, which they fixed in the Blu-ray releases and stuff, but that's not okay. I feel completely fine with people that have issues with when they have animation that is so horrible like that. That's not my problem at all. I'm fine when people speak up and there's an actual good reason. The problem that started happening is in the community, people started just doing it and complaining just for the sake of it. You have people that will go watching the Dragon Ball Super episodes and they'll just be pausing, moving really slow across them just to find anything wrong at all, to nitpick. Like, oh my god, this is a little off if you go slow here and pause right at this second. Well, of course it's gonna be bad. You're gonna have that with almost all different series. If you go that in depth, when you're actually watching it, you're not gonna see that. There obviously are issues, but what anime doesn't have animation issues here and there? I think the biggest problem is with people. With episode 5 created a lot of issues because it made people really, eyeball the anime itself. But while Dragon Ball Super is in HD and everything, it looks great because of that now. I think that's a positive and a negative at the same time, because if you go back to Dragon Ball Z and you look at it, it has some really rough points, and everyone, the biggest, the meme for that is, what was it, the one where, well, obviously, back when you had Pioneer doing it, they had a lot of issues, with Namek, where they would do recuts and stuff like that. You see, Frieza, have the black, suit and, tights down bottom, and then the next shot, he would go back to having it be, pink or something like that. That made no sense. And also, parts in the Sand Saga, where, you would see Nappa get hit and his arm would break away, and then you would have a next scene see him floating there, and it would all be fine. Then the next one, it would be back to wrong again. That's messing up with animation and stuff like that as well. That's messed up. But you also have other moments in Dragon Ball Z that were really messed up as well. The biggest difference is a good analogy is I see Dragon Ball Z as because it was hand-drawn, I see it as a grittier, dirtier version of animation, which I love. I prefer Dragon Ball Z. I love the hand-drawn animation. When I see Goku in them, that is who I see as Goku. So it seems kind of weird when I see Dragon Ball Super and the movies. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy them and stuff like that. It's just some of the animation, how they look, is kind of skinny and stuff like that at times. But the biggest problem is when people actually look at it being high definition, everything's so clear and glossy and everything else, so it creates another problem. When the animation is lacking or anything is wrong, it becomes very apparent that there's a problem. Because everything's clear on screen, so when you see something that doesn't look right, it catches your eye a lot more than back in Dragon Ball Z, where everything is a little bit grittier. It's harder to notice that because it's hidden behind all kinds of other things. But there's also one other thing that I don't think I've heard anyone talking about, and it's not the only reason. It's Dragon Ball Super is unique. When it comes to Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball and stuff like that, back when people first started watching it in the mid-90s, it had already run its course in Japan for the most part, and so it had already been finished, so it wasn't just coming out. So it had time to fix any problems, with not all of them, but, people weren't as eyes-on to it. But with Dragon Ball Super, it's just coming out in Japan, and everyone around the world is finally actually seeing that. And as it's coming out, there's a huge spotlight on that. That's something we haven't really had access to for quite some time. But it's also another thing that it goes into is for Super, since it's just coming out, this is phase 1 of it coming out. That's also shown with episode 5 of the Blu-ray, they fixed a lot of animation. They didn't fix everything, but they fixed some things. Dragon Ball Z has been out for a long time. It's been on, I think it was on Nickelodeon. Yeah, it was, because that's when they made Mr. Popo Blue and crap like that. But it's also been on Cartoon Network and everything else like that. And it's had so many runs and so many releases on different formats, to where it's been remastered, recut a million times. So a lot of the problems that have been fixed. Not all of them, but it's had a lot of time to do them. Think about this. When it first came out, it was released by Pioneer. You had the Saiyan Conflict and the Namek Saga. Both those box sets with VHSs. You had that first cut that was heavily edited and everything else like that, that had problems, inconsistencies, and everything else. Then Funimation came out and acquired the rights. Then you had the VHSs. There were the cut versions that came out, and also side by side, because I know this because I was collecting it at the time. I had to go through all those releases and stuff and waiting and dying to get the next one. You also had the uncut ones next to them as well. That came out on VHS. Then they came out, the same versions came out on DVD, made them a little bit better. And those versions look just a bit better, but they fixed a couple things with that, but there's still like grain and problems with that. After that, then they released the, I believe it was the Orange Bricks that came out after that, because I was collecting Orange Bricks when they came out. I didn't know that the Orange Bricks had so many issues. I was just watching, like, that's great. I didn't know they were cropped all over the place and they ruined the animation and stuff like that. So that was supposed to be remastered, supposed to fix stuff, but that messed it up. Shout out to Geekdom 101, who actually taught me how crappy the Orange Bricks were. Without that, I would have never noticed any of that stuff like that. I didn't pay heavily enough attention to that. On top of that, after that, finished out, you had like a Rock the Dragon version that came out that was supposed to be the old Pioneer stuff, I believe. I never really paid much attention to them. I saw them on the shelf, I was like, there's another Dragon Ball Z thing? Because you had the Orange Bricks out, you had that one, and you also had, shortly after, the Dragon Box came out, which were the penultimate versions, whatever you want to say, that had all the stuff correctly, 4-3, and how it was supposed to be. But by that time, I didn't even know, I just thought it was the same thing as the Orange Bricks, because there was too much crap coming out at the same time. But those versions remastered and did it correctly, so that made Dragon Ball Z, and that fixed a lot of the stuff and made it look even better. Then, after that, they also came out with, like, the Blu-rays, like 1.1, 1.2, the level sets, which were going to fix stuff like that, but they ran out, they didn't see it as monetarily a good idea, even though they were awesome. Then they came out with Dragon Ball Z Kai on both versions. It obviously changed a lot of stuff, the openings and stuff like that. And you also had the regular Blu-ray versions of stuff coming out. And then that's not even mention the movies and stuff like that. They've gone over it with a fine-tooth comb over and over, for better or worse, so many times on Dragon Ball Z. Getting back to my point, is Dragon Ball Z has been out so long and had so many revisions of it that they've been able to fix most of this stuff. And also, nostalgia for a lot of people makes it to where people don't think or notice all the problems they had. So with Super, it's just coming out, and it's the hip thing to do, to beat up on the animation and stuff like that, instead of just enjoying it. I think it's a good idea to only really hammer it like episode 5 stuff when it's horrible, but understand it's just coming out. It will get better, Don't just complain just to complain. A lot of people are arguing about it just for the fact to troll and like screen cap it and send it to some of the major like Dragon Ball YouTubers, Geekdom 101, Dragon Ball Nation, Rhyme Style. I left a bunch out, but I can't name them out forever. But the point is, they're just doing it just to get attention and just to complain. They don't really have a good reason. That's why I get tired of it. It's like, if you have a good reason, that's fine, but don't just be negative just to be negative. I think I've gone and made my point well enough and wasted a lot of your time at this point. Yeah, this has been Tatsuki of Flames, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Y'all have a good one.